got a little bit of an update. This one is on Lifeweaver, and it's kind of surprising. Kind of surprising. He's getting changes by season 5, and they're not that light. We have a director's take, a continued look at Lifeweaver. So I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to get straight into it. So here we go. I'll tell you my opinion after. Last director's take, we talked about the state of Lifeweaver and the changes that we were making to the hero in order to strengthen him. They had a positive effect, but didn't do nearly as much as we had hoped. We're going to continue the topic again this week. I'd like to look at some of those changes that we accomplished, what we think he's missing, and some possible solutions we're looking at for the hero. Over the last few weeks, we've had a number of buffs, tweaks, and modifications to Lifeweaver. In short, we modified his control scheme, making it more fluid and intuitive, and we buffed him across several different categories. We upped his heal ammo capacity, tightened the spread on his weapon, and buffed his ult. We saw a lift in his win rate across the game at the lowest skill tier. It was hovering around 45%, but quickly dropped off at the higher skill ratings. The effects we thought these changes would had were difficult to work through since they coincided with the modifications to his control scheme. It's a little easier to estimate the sort of effect that number changes will have on a hero's performance, but estimating the power that comes from a more fluid control scheme is much harder to do. We weren't sure how much it would change the hero's win rate, but we think we have a great base to build off of. Let's look at some of those changes and what they resulted in. We increased the ammo capacity on his healing to provide a higher throughput and increase the amount of healing that his ult does. This worked. He has one of the highest healing outputs in the game, including the highest at some skill tiers. This aligns with our vision for the hero, and we're happy about where he's at. We also tightened the spread on his weapon, but this only marginally raised his kills and eliminations. You have to squint to see the changes in our charts. Along with these stats, another piece of the puzzle is that Lifeweaver has one of the lowest, if not the lowest, death rate for support heroes in the game. This might seem like it runs counter to some of the commentary online that his hitbox is too big, but he is still taking a consistent amount of damage in the middle to the upper range of other supports. So we have a support hero that has one of the highest healing rates and one of the lowest death rates in the game. That should be good, right? Overwatch is more than raw numbers that get assigned to a hero's weapon and abilities. Players need a reason to pick one hero over another. For Lifeweaver, those reasons are supposed to be his utility abilities. Life Grip and Pedal Platform both can be game-changing abilities, but they're also inconsistent. When they work right, they can change the state of a fight, but many times they are waiting to be used or just not being used well, either by Lifeweaver or his team. When it comes to future changes for Lifeweaver, here's what we are thinking. We want to be clear on why players may select Lifeweaver over other heroes. If your current hero pick isn't working for some reason, whether it be a map or enemy team comp, what's a strong incentive for swapping to Lifeweaver? We may make other changes along the way, such as slightly buffing his Thorn Volley and reducing his hit volumes, but ultimately changes targeted at further pronouncing Lifeweaver's strengths and clearly defining his role on your team. This could be leaning harder into his healing effectiveness through a new passive or bringing additional benefits to some of his utility-focused abilities. With a defensive-based hero, we have to be careful how far we go in terms of buffing raw healing and defensive abilities. Too far can negatively disrupt the overall flow of an engagement. These are some of the early things we're iterating though. Hope to have our next set of changes ready for Season 5. With these changes, it's our hope that Lifeweaver will rise to his proper place among the heroes in Overwatch 2. Looking forward to the next director's take, which will be a different subject, something a little bit more future-facing. As always, thanks for reading and see you in game. Alright, let's go over this just a little bit. I wanted to read out the information base to base on its own. Now, he said the next director's cut is a little bit more forward-facing. I'm gonna go ahead and gamble a little bit here. That's most likely PvE news. Thankfully, we should get PvE news next week. I really hope we should. But I digress. Lifeweaver is a complicated subject, and if I wanted to break down the director's cut in a simpler format and more so defend myself at the start where I say it's going to be quite big changes, it's actually because they clearly have a shift and a focus on Lifeweaver. They're actually very happy that he's a little bit of a heal bot and has high healing potential, but I think where he's getting, under the fact 45% is already on the lower side, not terrible, but it'd be on the lower side. It's the bottom of what usually developers look at if a hero's balanced, and then he falls below 45% in the higher ranks is just crazy to me. Lower than 45% in the higher ranks, and really what's happening here is even at the highest ranks, there isn't enough of a skill curve to utilize his current kit well enough. Even if players are trying to work together with pedal platform or pull or whatever, it's not being coherent enough, or more importantly, not being consistent enough. The best way to look at it is any other support currently in the game is a lot more consistent. Think of any ability, absolutely any ability in the game. Baptiste, for example, throwing down his immortality field will almost always have an impact if you have half a brain cell. Okay, that's a little bit of a jab. You get what I mean. Any decent rank will understand how to make an impact with that immortality field, and it scales. It scales. The higher the rank, the more impact they'll be able to get out of that field more consistently every time it's up. While Lifeweaver, there's a couple things you got to chain together, and if you miss pull, and even if you correctly pull, it doesn't feel the best. There's just a lot of mishap with Lifeweaver himself, and the way they're tuning it, especially the mention of the passive, gets me to think that we're gonna see a little bit more ability-based rework, not just number tunage. I think when it comes to number tuning, they might up his damage, which is not a bad idea. They might want to also somehow change the way the damage and the healing translate to each other, because if you're throwing damage out as Lifeweaver, one, you're not doing a lot of damage, and then you also aren't charging your heal. And if you're only charging your heal, you're not dealing any damage, and that's already his weakest point. Somehow making these two more intuitive together would be massive. Making a more impactful passive would be huge, but no matter what, their biggest focus is how do we get players to choose Lifeweaver over other supports in situations? What maps, what situations, etc., etc. And to be honest, the best way to do that, in my opinion, would be to change his passive in a way that directly counters either a meta or a certain comp pick. That is way easier said than done, and I can't fully say for certain what they could do with that passive. I've been trying to brainstorm a little, but it's a little bit late. I'm a little bit tired. I'm already a little late on this video, and I feel a little embarrassed because I would sit longer and try to brainstorm, okay, what could they add to Lifeweaver that would make him an enticing pick? And the only way I could think of it is by looking at other current S tier supports or A tier supports and understanding why are they there and what could he leech off of. But that's still not what Blizzard is going for. They want to make him unique, and I would say they successfully made him unique, but it's just not impactful enough in those unique aspects of him, right? Sure, his abilities are unique, but they're not impactful enough or consistent enough to really stand a chance right now in Overwatch 2, like at all. And I actually decided to pause my commentary there and go check out. So I realized just a few days ago, CarQ actually posted his ranked tier list, and he has, oh man, he has Lifeweaver at the bottom for the top 500 player set, and still as a C tier, so the second lowest in everyone else, so 99.99% of players. And I digress, across both, that equally makes him the worst support. No other support is as bad as Lifeweaver. Every other support is B or higher. So no wonder Blizzard wants to rework him already and get some buffs going. And I'm glad that they're working hard right now because they want to fix him by Season 5. Do you trust Blizzard to do it? Let me know down below.